Okay, welcome to day 3, everyone. And so it's the Empowering Leadership 5-Day AI Challenge. And just a kind of quick recap, just to say what the purpose of the challenge is. It's to align it with your style, your leadership style, and so that it makes you more efficient, right? So the structure, we're on day 3, and the challenge spans 5 days, lasting 1 hour per day. And we have got interactive exercises, demos, and research, and we will be customizing, which we've already started. So, understanding your unique style. Now, the bit about the leadership style is something that I dive into in my September 12-week program. And although we've been looking at kind of our unique style, this is something that's tailored. We really hone into that. There's coaching that's part of that 12-week program. And in the space that we've had, we're not going into that, but that is something for that program. So we'll talk about that later on. But for now, where we've been looking at our AI systems and sort of automating the tasks. We're going to be building our AI assistant, focusing on task automation. And then we're going to see whether this aligns with our voice. Is this kind of what we want it to do for us? Okay. And day 5 is by day 4, I'd like you to have shared your assistant with me. And then what we'll be doing is there's going to be a winner. I'll have a look through those assistants, and for the best one, of course, all of you who are here doing this, completing this, are all winners, but we're going to have a prize for the best one. Okay, as we said before, no kind of experience needed. We're going to go through this step by step. I'm going to go a little bit slower today so that by the end of it, you've got some tangible activities to take away and start doing it for yourself. Okay, so my goal for you is, and I hope that's, my mission, if you'll accept it, is for you to have a functioning AI system that will align with your leadership capabilities. So, and after this, on day 5, I'll invite you for a one-to-one to see how your assistant's doing. Got additional kind of what are the strategies we can look at to discuss taking your assistant to the next level. So yeah, so these are all the things you'll have had. You've got access to the tool. We'll talk about that briefly, customization, and how you've instructed your assistant. That's going to be really key. And have you tested it? Have you had feedback? And that feedback follows after Thursday once you've actually set up and you're ready to go and we've got clear steps. Okay, so today I've gone back to day 1 for some reason, but let me click on back to, so I kind of do a recap each day. So what I'm going to do is, let me go, because it's gone to the top of the page. So you can see we've done quite a lot of stuff already. So please excuse the quick kind of jumping there. And hopefully it doesn't make you too giddy. Okay, so as we said, no prior experience needed. Just a quick recap, starting with day 1. What did we do? So we all said what we need to do in the first instance. We've got OpenAI. We're going for ChatGPT 4. This is the paid version. Okay, and so this is kind of like I've put a little screen grab there so we're clear on what it is. What we then went on to doing is we went on and we customized our settings. Okay, so that was the very first thing we did on day 1. Okay, so this is the bit where when you go into ChatGPT and you go to settings on the left-hand side, you've got the customization process. And what you want to be doing is making sure that your GPT knows and is able to better respond based on your kind of style. In other words, what you're doing is you're giving it this kind of overarching picture of you as an individual, because it's your model. So it kind of understands that. It gives you some prompt starters, like how formal you want your ChatGPT, how short do you want the responses? Do you want long, short responses? How do you want to be addressed? And should ChatGPT have opinions or on topics, or should it remain neutral? Now, if you recall, yes, these are great thought starters. And what I did with all of you who are here is I shared this text, which then is the thought process and has the kind of reasoning behind how your chat GPT understands you. I can't recall. Erica, do you have that? Let me know. And if you don't, I'll pop it in an email to you specifically, because I know I've shared it with Jamie and Paul in our conversation the other day. So the things and here I added the text in about kind of what I do. I work with those in leadership. I'm a coach. I gave background information, and I'm happy to kind of share that again with you should you need me to. So yeah, so first and foremost, customize your settings. That's going to be key when you begin. Okay, so hopefully everyone sort of gets that bit, okay, and is clear on what that looks like as well. So, okay, so the next stage, okay, where we went following this to test our GPT, we wanted to just give it a little test to see whether the model understands us. And so we did a little test email run. I'm hoping by now that one, you've customized your settings now, and you've also tested your GPT to see that it understands you and kind of has a sense of about what you do in terms of your leadership, whether it's your understand your business, because once you've added that information, it will know who you are. So hopefully you've all done that. So if you recall that text we had, so what GPT does, and you'll see this quite a lot when you are in the chat, it produces a markdown text format. So it has the asterisks, that type of thing. And it has that because of those bold captions that it has, and the markdown form, the text type is the thing that you have. Of course, you can delete that and you can just copy it. And that was what we saw in that email version. And so now what we're doing in day 3 is we're creating our own AI assistant. And I want to kind of ask you what that task will be for your assistant. So we're going to go through this step by step, and hopefully, my kind of, wish is that you have a clear understanding by today going, you know what, I want my assistant to do this for me. I'm clear, I've got some text, and then I've also got some sample copy that I can add as a knowledge base at the end of today. Okay, so how does that look? So I'm going to go into Chat GPT in a moment and show you what that looks like so that you have a sense of that. So we will go into something called configure our GPT. And it kind of starts like this, okay? And it's got it's called new GPT, but it's your assistant basically. And what you want to be thinking about as you do this is you want to give it a name, right? What is it going to be doing? You want to give it a description of what it is, and you want to give instructions as well. Give it context so it understands this. So now these are the steps in creating your assistant. The other key component in this is the knowledge as well. So what you can add here, I mean, you can add up to like 20 files. You can add so much content here. And this is where the magic is, because what you're doing is you're training it and you're giving it the knowledge that you're kind of inputting, you're giving your intern all the stuff that they need to have to do the job properly. So more we can train it, the better it will produce the outcome, the output in our chat. Okay, so that's going to be really key. And of course, so it can hold, like I said, it can hold number of files there. And so we would add PDF files, we would attach those into our knowledge. And that's where the beauty comes in kind of, creating our assistants, because then you can have multiple assistants and you can get them having different functions and performing different tasks in the chat. So over to you then to have a think. I'll go through this step by step. Okay. So we're missing an I there. So I want you to identify the objective, right? So what is the purpose of your assistant? What do you want your assistant to do? I really want you to have a think about this, because this is the piece when you're thinking about each assistant. What does that assistant need to do for you in that conversation? So I'm going to show you the example that I've produced, but I really want you to think about for your kind of assistant. So will they, will they be, is it a business coaching scenario? Is it, are you in a leadership role? So Erica, so for you, interior designer, is it for answering inquiries? Is it facilitating communication? So the more specific we can be, really, I mean, that's still quite open, isn't it, when we're thinking about facilitation? So it will help, as in when we start thinking about defining the function at that point, really set clear goals here, establish what you want the assistant to achieve. Is it engagement? Is it tailoring advice? Okay. So as you were coming in, so what you could start doing is what we've been talking about, I was just talking to Erica about, is having something, if you're in leadership role, you've got a business, you may have an ideal client scenario where you've got a profile of an ideal client. That really helps. And then that becomes almost like the person you're speaking to. And so more we can refine that, the better it will be in giving it that kind of knowledge base, if you like. And also you could go into what are their pain points? What are some of their challenges, fears, frustrations that your ideal client faces? Because more of that you can put in, the better it will be, right? So the outcome, is it going to be that you, is it for clients seek, what do they seek? Is it career advancement? Is it work-life balance, that type of thing? And maybe it's design your own, have your own, like design and interior designer, for example, that type of thing. So remember yesterday, one of the things I said was to start collating and getting the information that gathering information for the assistant. So whether it's articles, whether it's materials, the more more information we give it, the better it will understand the outputs and what we want from it. Because that's the bit where I think that's the piece that a lot of people kind of, if it's too generic, it won't help. So you can structure the information, and I'll show you, like, when you've got the information, actually you can upload those files, and as long as that information is specific for that particular assistant, then it will, you don't have to have it in a neat kind of way where you kind of have subheadings and it's like a report structure. It will understand that content, because I've uploaded transcripts of recordings, and I've just uploaded that, and it can retrieve that information in the GPT, which is it makes it really kind of simple and easy to do. Communication channels, decide where your system will interact. Is it going to be website, social media, email, and also align it with your brand voice? How is it, do we want empathy there? Do you want it to be inspirational? And personalization as well in terms of the needs of the client persona. So of course, the tool we're using is ChatGPT. And there are obviously other tools that you can create these assistance agents, which I go into in my 12-week program, where you can kind of migrate and get a different tool speaking in a way that automates the whole process. So that's kind of a little bit more advanced. But for the purpose of where we are today, it's really automating it and seeing what our system does. And I think starting with the first one is the key thing. So we're going to train our AI. We're going to give it the the knowledge base and understand our client and how we want that, how we want the assistant to interact or engage. Is it sensitive? Is it, is it professional? However you want to do that. And of course, we want to test it and we want to refine that as well. We want to track, and what we'll be doing is checking to see how that looks. Now, I'll show you what I did, okay, in a moment, but let's open it up first before I do anything else. Let me just double check. In terms of, okay, don't have it, please share. Okay, no, okay, perfect. I'll share that with you. Okay, so in terms of I just want to double check that you have you know what you want your assistant to do. Are you all clear on that? Do you feel you have a sense of what you want your assistant to do before we go into kind of looking a little bit more deeper into this creating assistant? And we can have one example if you like, and let me call out. Jamie, do you know what you'd like your assistant to do?
Yeah, I'm still wanting it to kind of help with social media.
Okay, so you're going to stick to social media. It's writing copy then.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to stick, that's going to be, so it's going to be your social media creator. So that's going to be the title of your assistant, possibly. You might give it that title. And have you got examples of text so that you can train it with the knowledge that you want it to kind of, have you got some knowledge that we can refer to?
I have, I mean, yes and no. I have, the thing is, I don't always know what my social media text will be. So yes and no. I've got some examples. I've got articles and things of various that contain information on my topic, but I've got to kind of see what you're going to do here to see about how you manage a social media.
Okay. So what I'm going to suggest something is so we've got Paul saying content creator, mainly copy for a blog. Okay, brilliant. So what I'm going to suggest is if we can kind of know a little bit about the person we're speaking to, like, do we have someone in mind that we're talking to? Because I sense from Crest yesterday, she had several clients. So it might be that she has different assistants for different clients. But if you have like a ideal client, that the person you're speaking to, and it might be that you've got an example of that individual, you've got a description, then actually the stuff that we start creating later on, it will make it easier because our messaging will align with that kind of reader, that audience that we're talking to. That makes sense. So what I'm going to show you is that what I did is I ended up having a ideal persona, ideal client, and I then uploaded the knowledge based on that. So it was quite detailed. So it's looking at, their fears, frustrations, their aspirations, that type of thing, who they are, where, demographics, psychographics, and more information I gave it in terms of the ideal client, then I knew that things that I was producing, like my blogs, or if I'm writing emails, or if I'm writing content, it really speaks to that individual. And so that might be a starting point in terms of how we get started with this. So it's just something to think about. So we may have our system kind of creating this content, but we want it to kind of who's it talking to. So I'm just thinking like that, like who we're talking to in that sense. So maybe Paul has the person. So it's saying content creator, copywriting for high-end interior. Okay, so it's blog writing as well. So yeah, and so we may have different, like I said, yesterday, we may have like several assistants, and they're all got like, say, imagine you've got a handful of interns or assistants doing different things. You'd send one to, for the copywriter to check. You may have, okay, and so the copywriter's thinking, who's the person is this to, for? So once we get that, it really helps. Then the intern kind of understands, oh, okay, it goes away from the very generic means, as opposed to kind of, like, yeah, this is the person I'm speaking to. So I'm going to, so what I did was, if you have a look at this, right? So I ended up, this is my example, and I'll show you how we go into configuring this, right? So as an assistant, I wanted to create, I named it bot. I didn't need to, I could have just named it assistant. At the time, I was like, well, what do I give it? I'll give it a, I'll call it a bot, right? When I first started doing this, but yeah, bots, I discovered is they're a little bit different. They are very much like the things that you see on websites, and yeah, it kind of has similar function, but bots are very different because they are trained only for that information to answer those questions. Whereas when I'm creating an assistant, it will still scrape the internet for if it can't find the answers. So what we're going to be doing is we're training our model to kind of understand that this is kind of what I want you to do. So it's like, yeah, we're training our intern so that they kind of like, you've got, this is what I'm doing, go away and produce my copy, or go away and do this for me. Because actually, as leaders, as kind of lead thinkers, we don't have, we want the job done quickly, right? As opposed to kind of having to always start from first principles, which is really time consuming. So I named it, okay, so that was number one of that, and then I gave it a description, okay. So and this is the bit where when you are inputting the information, you're saying what you want your assistant, kind of, this assistant contains all the knowledge related to my ideal client avatar and my business. So I've got the document. I'll show you what I did was I uploaded a file with all the information. Then my assistant kind of understood that this is where the, when every time I evoke leaderized bot, it goes into that conversation, or it goes into my knowledge base. And it's like having an intern on hand with that information. I don't need to kind of tell it every time, go and have a look in that file. No, it's already there. So I can kind of like just evoke that in my conversation, and then it kind of lifts that information and writes whatever I ask it to do when I'm prompting, which, when if we get onto that today, then we can kind of look at a couple of examples of that. So I put like my instructions there, and I can go into a little bit more detail here, but I gave it kind of clear instructions. I said, ideal client avatar, my bio, my products is contained in your knowledge base. I'm telling it that you have this information in your knowledge base to go and look there. So I'm kind of instructing it to do that. Please provide any answers to the user, being kind of when it produces the outputs, from your local knowledge base exclusively. So get it from there. I'm putting exclusively because I don't want it to kind of scrape the internet and just fill the gaps. And if you cannot find it there, ask the user. So if they want you to look into more general knowledge base. So what that means is, if it can't find information in the document I've uploaded, then before you go onto the knowledge base, ask me before you do that. I don't want you to just kind of get that information and assume that you fill the gaps there, because it may not be the right information. And then it's like, yeah, it's generic. And sometimes, sometimes you might want that, but only when you instruct it to do that. So I've specifically said this, you may go kind of a higher grade level. I always find the simpler I make the communication, the better it is. Write in a professional but friendly tone, use grade 11 writing level for outputs, maximize perplexity and burstness. So I want it to be kind of energetic and positive and emphatic and inspirational. And make sure your outcomes are complete and concise. So don't give me kind of incomplete bits of information I can't make sense of, because that won't help me. Like when I'm calling on you, I need concise answers. So I've kind of like said that. And then in my knowledge base, which I'll show you in a moment, that's kind of what I've then done when I've created this, and I've then saved it. And I can't remember if I added a picture. You can add an image, but you can do that later. And I'll show you that what I've done with this is only for me, and it shows me that it's live, and I've not made it publicly available because it's only kind of like, I don't want my intern going everywhere. I just want my intern for myself. So I've kept it private for myself, right? So, right, before I go on and show you this, I just want to have a pause to see if you've got any questions at this point, because I know I've been going through a lot last couple of days before I go into the chat GPT and show you what I added in there. Let me just, yeah, Erica, is that you, Erica?
Yes, that's me. So I want to ask you, because I've done a lot of work in the past few months putting a website that's my personal website with my content, and as well as a business website that is targeted to interior design in New York City specifically. And although they are very similar and they merge into each other, the messages is slightly different because one is service based in a location, a specific location, and then my personal website is mission based, like what I'm here to do for like my mission as a person here. So when you are entering the instructions in there, I saw that you said bio and things like that. Could I enter the websites as a reference for them to pull out the content? And, if I were to do that, is that something you recommend, if it's possible?
Yeah, 100%. So what I would do is, if you've got a website, you just, what you would do, you would add it into the knowledge base. So you would click on to, you don't need to print, save it as a PDF, and then upload it into your knowledge base. And then that way it will understand to get the information from there. And what would happen, that PDF will be your knowledge base that it refers to. If that makes sense.
Okay, great. And what happens if, because during this process, I've realized that our message is always evolving, it's always changing slightly, or a target or avatar changes with time. You may think that you start with something and then you end up with something else, right? Or come across something that inspires you to maybe look in a different way. What do we have to upload that knowledge panel? Do we have to keep it updated, or is there a way that it can naturally be updated without us having to do it?
Yeah, I think you do need to, if you've changed information, if you update, it's like a policy. If you update it, you want to kind of have the most recent there. So you might have a rule of thumb that you update it every 3 months to check that it's, it's still relevant. Because you will, I'd encourage you to do that. Even with customizing your GPT, you might then evolve, and we do, like businesses, we evolve. We might find we've added another program that we want to add to our knowledge base. You may have the basics of that, but you may have add-on programs that you add to your knowledge base. Yeah, you could definitely do that. Like your website, you may change that, and then the information might change as well. So you're like, okay, I was talking here specifically about this type of interior design, but actually what I'm going to do is I want to shift a little bit. We pivot, and so as soon as we pivot, we might change the document. So it might be just a kind of thing, a checklist, like, okay, did I upload my website? Did I change it on my GPT, on my assistant? Yes, I have. So it's very quick, because it's once you have that, it's you almost not have to quickly take a screen grab or something, and then upload it. That's enough. You don't have to organize it into a filing system, because it will, as long as we tell it to find the information from there, it will do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So it will
But
evolve.
there's no way like automatically can do it for me.
There there is a way where you can upload it and change it, but that kind of, it requires a bit of integration. So that's kind of the next level. So like that's the thing that you could do, say if you were doing more advanced, where you could get a system like make.com, and then you can integrate these different steps and then create a document in maybe in your Google Drive, and then every time you upload that, it kind of speaks to the GPT and uploads it, it changes it, but you have to kind of have that set up in place. So that requires a little bit more of like a technical insight. But for the basic stuff here, what we're doing is we have to do it manually for the first thing. So
Okay,
definitely a
that's
way.
great. Thank you. Thank you, Bally.
Welcome, yeah. So it requires like getting these tools to speak to something called make.com, and then that integration process can be done, and it kind of, that's yeah, so there is a way to do it. Yeah, so that those are streamlining processes as we go through, but hopefully that was clear. So I'm gonna has anyone got any other questions before I go on to my GPT and show you what to do when you're setting up, because I'm going to be asking everybody to be doing that, because that's the kind of piece. Without that, you can't really, you know, we're not going to know kind of like where to get started, because I really want everybody like to have their GPT ready. So I'm going to show you what we'll be doing. So I'm going to share again, I'll go back into sharing my screen. And so yeah, we go into our GPT. So where we do is we'd go in here. So we've all talked about this. I know, Paul, you were saying that you were going to get your GPT-4. Okay, so what we would do is every time, of course, we go into a new chat, then every time a new chat, if you recall from yesterday, each chat is almost like you're giving it, you're telling your intern that you're framing or you're setting a context. You're saying to them, I want you to go and write this in this way. So each like conversation is framed. So if you go to your chat, that's what you'll be doing each time. So every time you start a new conversation, you would want to start a new chat. And I would suggest, because it can get, like I was saying yesterday, it can get really, there can be a lot. So I delete mine, because it just ends up being a lot of stuff. As I was doing this over the last like couple of years, it just, you know, it just got sort of so busy. And so when I discovered like I could create these assistants in this way, it just kind of saves so much more time. And you'll start seeing there's lots of other GPTs, they're called, or assistants. And so we're obviously we're in this environment, and so what we're doing is creating our assistants in this environment. Of course, there are other tools, but the key thing is here you'll see a lot of these GPTs available. But I would have my own, and these are publicly available. So if, like, for example, if you click on here, you're going to see like so many of them. So, and it gives you all these kind of website generators. Now, what this means is that every time you click on one of these, okay, it's been created in the GPT. It's been created in the way that you would create your own GPT, if you like, or your assistant. And so these are publicly available, right? So there's so many that have emerged, and I think, Jamie, you and I were speaking about this, like saying how few there were when this first came out. Now there are hundreds of them. And so what people have done is they've created these assistants, have them on there, so they become available. And then what I've noticed with some of them, they send you to a website, and they're kind of getting you to then sign up, say, to create their web, you know, they'll say, you know, if you want more information, click on this link, and then they send you to a kind of like a page, which is quite clever too, right? So it might be something later on you do, but yeah, I mean, for now, I think in terms of our own systems, what you want to be doing is, so where I was a few moments ago is I was at my own GPT. So for example, so if I go into more and I went into the leaderized bot, okay, and what I then was doing is if I go into here and if I edit my, so if I want to create one, I would, I'll show you in a moment how to do that. But if I want to go in and edit it, so you would go in here and this page comes up. So this is what you were seeing as the screen grab there. So you've got the name of that assistant. It's given, yeah, so I've given it the name, and it's got the description. Every time I evoke this is the information we're going to see. And this is the instructions I've specifically given it, okay? And I can go into a little bit more detail here as well if I wanted to, okay? So your task really is to kind of like give your assistant a name, give it a description. And here, what I've done is I've uploaded my ideal client PDF, and it's got like, I don't know how many pages. I think they're like 80 pages. I don't know, Erica, I don't know how many pages you had in your ideal client, but yeah, there's quite a lot of pages there. And then I've left these capabilities. I didn't really need to kind of tick these. You can if you want, but so yeah, and then I of course saved it. So that's what I did, and then of course you can upload an image if you like, and I can see that it's live, and I know, like I said earlier on, it's only for me. So the question is now, how do we go about setting our own up? Okay, and of course, like you can even, okay, the other thing you could do is if you're not even sure about the instructions, you could even ask ChatGPT to provide you with some of those instructions, and but just check that you're happy with those instructions, because it might give you something that you're not happy with. So you could test it out that way if you like. But in terms of your knowledge and the information you upload, the PDF, then you can upload about 20 files here. But this one in itself is really detailed. So in my other ones, I've added like transcripts that I've had. I've just uploaded transcripts for my session, from my live coaching sessions, because I want to understand the conversations and just understand how that works. I've got a question in, so I'm just going to answer. Let me just see. 43 pages. So yeah, it's got 43 pages. So it's a PDF. You want to save it as that. Okay. Now, as we saw yesterday, you can upload a document in the chat as well. And there's a limitation with that because it can only kind of cope. Each chat has a beginning of you setting the context. I see it as a coaching call, coaching focus. It's one thing that we're looking at. Anything new that we add to it kind of confuses that conversation. So it's not able to follow in that way. So I start again with the conversation. If you upload that document, then you start uploading other documents. It may kind of, it needs to be clear. So one of the things I'm learning is to create better habits in my ChatGPT, like using it so that I'm not always having to start from the beginning, but I'm actually starting with, like, I've given it that information. How can I draw on my assistants, and how can I evoke on those every time I kind of start kind of producing content, whether social media content or if it's writing a blog. Okay. And yesterday we said that we can create a system very specifically to a framework. Okay. So, so how do we set up our from our settings? How do we go about doing that? So what I'm going to do in a moment, I'll show you what you would do. Okay, is you would go into, let me just see on here. So let me just see. Okay, so we're going to our ChatGPT. It's gone. And I'm going to check to see. Okay. And so we want to go into configure. Okay, so when I go into, I'll sharing with you in a moment. Okay, and I've got a couple of other people that have joined. I just want to double check. Oh, they've dropped out. I think I had Katrina, but she's no longer here. Okay, I just wanted to double check with her as well. So, Paul, before I go on, I just want to double check. Have you managed to get ChatGPT? Have you got 4 now? Have you got questions about that? Or is it kind of still playing up in terms of accessing ChatGPT 4? Not yet. Okay. So yeah, that would be good if you're able to maybe give it another test to a run to see what's going on with that. I don't know if anyone else experienced problems getting kind of going in and getting for like the paid version of ChatGPT. Okay, so yeah, so once you have that up, okay, so if you give me a second, just gonna go on here. I just want to go into my 1 second. I'm going to doing something. Just want to make sure that I've got the right setting up here as well. For some reason it's gone into temporary chat. Okay. And I'm still here. Okay, so so if I just want to double check before I was sharing anything that that wasn't needed on the screen because we're recording this. Okay, so you want to go into a section where it says create a GPT, right? So GPT, an assistant or an agent, okay? And you want to click on that, okay? So in the first instance. And so you'll see that I've got quite a few different ones that I've been doing. And yeah, so that was part of my training there. But so for you, what you want to do is to go into this, click on that, and then as soon as you start entering your information on that, the name, description, instructions, okay, and knowledge, and you upload the files there. I clicked out of this I didn't feel like I need the web browsing, but it will still scrape the internet web browsing. But yeah, I tend to click out of those. And I just want it to kind of look at this, and it does fill gaps if he doesn't find it in there. But like I said, I ask it to ask me before it does anything there. And then I've uploaded quite a number of files, PDFs to this. And that's what I did. And then I saved it. And then as soon as I saved it, and then what I want to do is I want to test run my GPT as well. So it says create, okay, name cannot be MT, but yeah, so you would save it there. And so as soon as that's done, I've got a question that's come in. Okay. Do you recommend entering specific links to a website or instructions? What is your experience? So yeah, good question. What I did was you can add links if you like, but what I did was you almost like need to be clear you want it to go to that link, but you can add it into the files. I just saved them as documents here and found that it was able to pick up from there, because we can test run it to see if you add the link, what it does. Will it go specifically? You would add it into those curly brackets and said, check here. But what I found was I uploaded my files like the ones I saved. So if it's a website, I might say specifically go here. But yeah, we can test it to see if it does that. Maybe I'll do a test run before tomorrow and see and let you know whether it kind of just goes specifically to that file, is it able to do that? But what I've just done is I've uploaded like about 20 10 files, and I've just added up transcripts. So in the case that yesterday when Paul was speaking, we were talking about uploading examples of text. So if you've got text or examples of people's work that you really like, you may want to get your GPT to create a like you may want to get the GPT to kind of like organize it in a way that's like, okay, create a framework of this blog. You know, what are you noticing in this blog? You know, they might say, well, I've noticed there's like an intro, there's a little bit of bio here, they've got a certain structure. It will be able to do that for you and then apply that framework. Can you add markdown files, create knowledge? Yeah, definitely. You can just, and that's what makes it really simple, because it understands, because it's trained in that way. And so, yeah, 100%, it's good to do that. So, and you can even ask your GPT to kind of give you a CVS file for you if you've got like names. And that's something we can talk about certainly in the programming if you decide to join in September. But yeah, so you could kind of, you know, the output bit. But yeah, you can definitely get frame markdown text, put them in that. And I've just added information, not in any kind of like transcript, certainly. I've just added the whole transcripts like from my coaching conversations, and not putting timestamps. And actually it picks up, have I used, so I was working on accreditation. Have I done this? And it will say, yes, you did, or no, you haven't. So I found that really helpful, like having that, because I don't have to instruct it too much. I'm just going to get a tissue and I'll be in a moment, just a second. But I want you to have a think about your assistant as I go and do that. So give me a second. I'm back. Okay. So it's been raining here, but it's we've had hot and cold weather. Okay. So can you add the framework markdown? Yep. Is there any other questions? So I'm going to go through what your task is for today. Okay. And I want everybody to have their assistants. That's your task for today, kind of like working on creating that. Okay. And then I'd like you to kind of like share that with me. You can even email me what you've done. So I'll go through some of those instructions again, like understanding the you know, the purpose of the assistant. What do you want them to do? So initially, it does take a bit of like you know, preparation in terms of what you want. But once you have that, it's available. You don't have, like I said, you don't have to kind of start again each time. So the initial bit is like, yes, I've got this and I want it to do this and have this available. So it does save time, but initially we have to get that knowledge, so it understands where to look in its knowledge base. And so that's basically what you're doing. Okay, so I'm going to open it up to some questions here before I kind of give you kind of an outline of what you'll be doing in preparation for tomorrow, and then say a little bit about kind of how we can test it in terms of the prompting. So any questions before I kind of give you your outline of your task? Just going to ask, Jamie, was that clear?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to find out when I get the results.
Was it? Okay. Yeah. So there's a lot of like I don't like recall kind of thinking about like starting this. I was thinking, well, what information do I need? Like, what voice do I want it in? But as soon as I have that information, I know it. Like that's why I started with the ideal client, because it helped me kind of frame, like I know who I'm serving, and even if you don't, you know, like you could say I'm not quite sure, but I might just say I want to have these frameworks ready, so I've got my assistant who understands the framework. That could be a starting point, but just having that because then it will always understand. If you're writing a blog, who's your kind of ideal client, you know, your audience. If you're writing social media posts, so it just makes the process so much easier in terms of whatever we're creating. That's what I found anyway. Erica, you were going to say?
Yes, so I've been working on this book, as you know. I'm wondering if there's a way that I can utilize that, because the feedback that I got from, when I was creating this book, it's not quite right, but is there a way that I can summarize, kind of upload that document and have it summarized so I can clearly see the areas where it's really not working, and then the areas that I will want it to keep as I'm going through the process?
Yeah, what you could do is a test run, because there's quite a lot of like text there, isn't there? You might want to test maybe one chapter. And so once you have your assistant, say you've got your assistant AI set up, what you could then do is start a new chat in your GPT, like in your chat. And then you could say, based on this, or based on chapter 1, if you haven't separated those chapters, now give me kind of like produce an outline, okay? And does this align with my ideal client? And where do you think there's bits, to be that specific? Because what you'll be doing then is you will be calling on your assistant, right, in the chat, right? So you'll be doing, you'll be evoking it in that way, as in, rather than keeping it like every time you open Chat GPT, it's got your customized, it understands who you are. But it's only until you bring your assistant into that conversation. And then in that conversation, you can upload your chapter into it, if that makes sense. I can show you. Okay. So let me just go back.
Sorry, I'm lost.
Yeah.
But what I'm thinking is like, so do you do, like, let's say, for instance, if one is building a personal brand, right? That's what I'm working into. And we need social media, we need blogs, we need posts for Instagram, you call it. And then I'm doing the book and all this part. Would you recommend having a separate assistant for each one? Like one that will call it book, one that call it business, one that call it, like, how would you recommend organizing them?
Yeah.
So,
I would definitely do that. So if you had, like, say in a company, you've got different sort of departments or different individual roles, I would then create these roles and start saying, if I were to employ someone, what role would I give them, right? What would their job be, and then I would create a system based on that. So, if you had a copywriter, you'd send something to a copywriter, then I would create an assistant just specifically for that. If I wanted someone to create, say, social media manager, for example, I would say, I would create like an assistant specifically for that. So I would separate them. And so it's clear what their function is. And so you would feed it some information. Oh, okay, good question, Paul. Erica, does that answer your question? Like, I would have separate ones because
yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
And if you're, you can even ask it to kind of say, so for example, we've done this, and I can show you, if like in my program, what I do is I go through, like, I've got this text. Who are the specialists that would be needed in producing this high quality text? And so it might say a linguist, or it might say a psychologist, right? And so it starts telling you, right? So you're like, okay, so that's great. So now I know. So I want you to act as my psychologist, and then now write the copy based on that. So I can really kind of be specific and get it to kind of give me some info, and going backwards and forwards a little bit, but yeah, it does produce it. So yeah, so in terms of Paul's question, which has got a minute, actually I've gone over time. What's the purpose of the asterisks or hashtags serve in the Markdown framework? Yeah, so the asterisks are telling, so it's a way of creating bold text. And so the asterisks are when the bold text is there, kind of like this is kind of the bold text, and then of course the other bit of the text follows through that. And it's the way kind of programming language, if you like. You can just remove it, but more we kind of like it understands that as a way. So yeah, you can even get it to produce a markdown text for you and say, create markdown text, so I can, and then you can upload that, save it, create a file, like a file, then you upload that into your knowledge base. Okay, so just to kind of recap, what you'll all be doing is you'll be getting kind of like really honing in on the purpose of your GPT, your assistant, okay, and have that information ready. So it requires you to kind of think through what it is and think about what files, what information you'll be adding as your knowledge base. So yeah, those are the steps, okay, for tomorrow. And then what we're going to be doing is we'll be testing it, and we'll be doing a little bit of prompting and seeing how that's doing, and we can test it through, and we can, we can share those, and I can share what we've, what I've done as well. So that GPT, you can sort of see, okay, does yeah, it does what it says on the tin. Okay, so go out, ignite change, realize potential, shape the future. And I'm really glad that you guys are here today. And thank you so very much. And I'm excited to see how your assistants come along. Okay, see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Bally.
You're welcome. Paul,
Bye,
thanks.
everybody.
Bye, Erica. Ciao, ciao, ciao.